remember when the first time I went fishing was. Probably the fall festival of 1999, as I anxiously awaited pulling my line up from behind that plywood wall, where I soon found a bag of Fritos close into my fishing line. What a thrill that was. I tried to do it again, but my mom wouldn't let me. I guess you could say I've been hooked ever since. You know, I always love to hear the story in Bible class that comes from John 21, where Jesus told the disciples to cast their nets to the other side of the boat, and their nets became full of fish. I could just picture all those fish almost breaking the net. I also remember all the fishing gear I had as a little boy. You know, the magnetic type, where the fish have magnets too. There have even been a few birthdays where I got checked out of school so that I could go fishing. As far as I know, I've just always loved to fish. Don't get me wrong, I have other interests. Hunting and baseball are great, but if I had to choose on any given day, I'd choose to go fishing. A few years ago, when asked what I want to be when I grow up, I would always reply, I want to be a pro fisherman. I guess that doesn't surprise any of you, since I've said the word fish 23 times in the last 30 seconds. But I am thinking a little more realistically these days. And I don't have as quick of an answer to that question. But when thinking about my topic, we'll work till Jesus comes, I thought, wouldn't it be great if I could be a pro fisher of men? This reminds me of the famous fishermen, Peter, Andrew, James, and John. How great it would have been to be sitting there in my boat, working on my net, and have Jesus himself, come up and ask me to follow him, and he would make me a fisher of men. What a privilege it would have been to hang around him and tell others about him. Now, I'm not so fortunate a person as Peter or Andrew, but a fisher of men is still possible today. And to be a pro would mean a person would endlessly endeavor to bring lost souls to Christ. Now, this would definitely require work, but what a great work it would be. In James chapter 2, verse 17, we are commanded to work. James says that faith without works is dead. We can have faith in the word, but if we don't show it, our faith is dead. A person can begin that work with worship service. There's work to be done here that would encourage and build up other Christians, whether it be as simple as serving at the Lord's table, or leading a prayer, or just helping people in the door and to their seats. With words or deeds, he could strengthen the faith of fellow Christians, or maybe even someone who hasn't obeyed the gospel yet, a fisher of men. Next, we can look for opportunities to talk with others about the gospel. For we are told in Mark 16:15 to go ye into all the world and preach the gospel. We can do this in our jobs, or for those of us who are in school, we can do this at school and other activities. This is probably the hardest part of the work that is to be done, simply because it's often uncomfortable to initiate this. But if we do as we're told in Matthew 5, verse 16, and we let our light shine before men that they may see our good works, and we look for opportunities to help others or to be kind to them, we may find it's easier than we think. And they may ask, what did you have in your cornflakes? And then we notice the bobbers start to disappear, a chance to tell the wonderful story of Jesus and his love for us, a fisher of men. Another way we can work to influence others is by our attitude. What's that old saying? Attitude determines altitude. This is true. Our attitude can help us or hurt us. And at the same time, it does the same thing to our peers. This past summer, I was encouraged to watch the movie Soul Surfer. I'm sure by now most of you have seen this movie. And if you have, I probably don't need to say anything more. But for those of you who may not, let me tell you, this movie was inspiring. It is a true story about a girl who grew up in Hawaii and loved to surf. When she was about my age, she had a tragic accident in the ocean, where a shark took her entire left arm off. She went through many trials, of course, with just everyday tasks. She found little things extremely difficult that we all take for granted every day. After learning to cope with her handicap, which she credited to her faith in God, and the verse from Philippians 4:13 that states, I can do all things through Christ which strengthens me, she decided she wanted to learn how to surf again. And not only surf, but she was determined to win competitions, as she had before her accident. This took a ton of work and determination. She had a winner's attitude, and she eventually won several championships, and built quite a fan club along the way. This girl had the attitude that we all need to influence others. She was even quoted as saying that she could only be thankful for her tragedy because she was able to embrace more people by having only one arm than she ever could have with two. A fisher of men. Last summer, I was privileged to hear a lesson from one of our brethren with us today, Brother Dale Jenkins. His lesson was simply titled, Pain. He told us how pain is just pain. But when we put work and time with it, it becomes a masterpiece, so to speak. I remember him saying, you don't invite your friends or family over to see your paint. When they get there, you say, see, here's my paint. As they gaze bewildered at the paint can sitting on your table, unopened. No, you get the roller out and the paintbrushes, and you work and work until the walls are perfect. And then you invite them to see your paint. Brother Jenkins went on to tell us how our Christian life is like this. If we don't do the will of God, we're like the paint, unopened, sitting on a shelf or table. But if we do the work we're called to do, others will see the beauty of our paint. We're told in James 1 verse 22 to be doers of the word and not hearers only. We must get to work. In the parable of the talents that Jesus tells in Matthew 25, a person learns that we are all blessed with certain gifts. You may not be the best speaker or song leader, or you may be like me and not know how to cook anything besides fried bologna sandwiches. But there is something we're all good at. We may need to search ourselves to find it, but it's there. And we need to use whatever that talent is to do God's work. You know, I may not ever be a great fisher of the fresh water. I may not be the next Bill Dance and set this or that record for the highest pounds of fish caught. But I can be a fisher of men, and I encourage all of us to be. As young people, we've been labeled the church of the future. But we are actually the church of now, because there are things we can do. Are you ready to finish the work we are called to do? Let's all be pro-fishers of men.